In this example, I will explain how an internal combustion engine works and what parts make up it. First, let's review the components of this heat engine. A cylinder is a round tube-like part that connects the crankshaft to the spark plug. It functions as a compartment where combustion can occur and to hold the piston in place. The spark plug is important because it is what starts a chemical reaction between the air and the fuel. It uses electrical energy to form a spark, which ignites the fuel to do so. Without the intake valve, the heat engine would not be able to bring in fuel or air. The intake valve opens each time the piston comes up and puts in new air and fuel. This keeps the cycle going. On the other hand, there is the exhaust valve. This one opens each time the piston goes down to let out the hot gases that accumulate after combustion. This way, the engine is less likely to overheat. The crankshaft is the component at the bottom of the piston that converts the up and down motion of the piston into circular motion. The piston is an important part of an internal combustion engine because it is the part that converts the thermal energy into kinetic. Now that you know each part of an internal combustion engine, their jobs are, let's look at how it all works. First, we need to understand how the chemical energy of gasoline is converted into thermal energy. As you can see, when a molecule of CH18 is exposed to oxygen and ignited to form water, H2O, and the carbon binds to the oxygen to form CO2 and CO. These are the molecules typically found in exhaust. In this process, a great amount of thermal energy is released due to the thermal expansion. When anything gets hot, but more for gases, it expands. This expanding mix of gases is trapped in the cylinder, so it has no other choice but to raise its pressure. When the pressure becomes high enough, it forces down the piston, converting thermal energy into kinetic. In a car, this process is highly inefficient. Only about 20% of the thermal energy is converted into kinetic, not to mention the waste energy due to friction between the car parts and.
In this example, I will explain how an air conditioner works and what components make it. The compressor pump that the coolant fluid goes through the system increases the pressure when it gets pumped through. The expansion valve releases the pressure from the fluid and allows it to evaporate. The coolant is a fluid that evaporates at a lower temperature than most fluids. This allows for it to absorb heat at room temperature. Now I'll explain how an air conditioner works. Before getting into this process, at which the coolant fluid undergoes when circulating the fluid, I will explain how pressure affects the way the fluid evaporates. The fluid that are under high pressure require a higher temperature to evaporate than fluids under a lower pressure. You could almost say that the pressure of a fluid can change its specific heat by specific heat describes the change in temperature rather than the state of matter. Before entering the compressor, the hot gas has a pressure of 100 psi, but then gets to pressurize to 400 psi. The great amount of pressure will stop the gas after it condenses from evaporating again until it reaches the expansion valve. After passing the compression, the hot gas moves by the fan. This cools it down, and the coolant condenses into a fluid. Once a liquid that the coolant fluid passes the expansion valve lowers its pressure to about 100 psi. This allows for the liquid to evaporate and it becomes a gas again. When evaporating, a fluid absorbs the thermal energy in its surroundings. In order to maintain energy conservation, this rises its temperature greatly but cools the surrounding areas. This is what lowers the temperature of air in the system pump around the evaporation areas and makes the air conditioner blow a cooler air. Once again, the coolant goes way back to the compressor and the cycle continues.